Welcome back, everybody, to the HGC Eastern Clash here in Taipei, Taiwan. We're currently looking at the grand final, and KSV Black has just taken the lead again in the best-of-7 series against Ballistix. Very impressive performance and very dominant performance on Sky Temple.
Yeah, it all started again with the the Tychus rotation. Without that, who knows how that game would have looked? It feels like the pathing just a little bit too far out. Again, that was based on the manipulation of information. Tiss in that transition actually didn't show whether or not he was feigning that. Obviously, the rest of the three members on bottom, they didn't know if it was a 3 versus 3. And that seems like it's been a lot of the story of the Eastern Clash. Who can manipulate and capitalize on that faster? Right now, it's KSV.
And what we have seen already in the setup here for heroes as well, we've seen a lot more false set actually that we expected from a Western perspective. And we've touched upon the subject a bit earlier. We'd really like to hear your thoughts on that as well. False set played into Genjis, we've seen it also even played into Tracer, and that's something that the Western teams are shying away from. Why do you think there's this difference now in how the Eastern teams are approaching that subject?
I think the biggest thing from the entirety of the tournament is the amount of resources committed to the ganks onto the false set. It seems like more often than not, Western teams are willing to commit 2 to 3 very fast to try and make sure they isolate it and get the kills, whereas within the rest of the world, again, based on the information available and how fast they act, it just seems like the rest of the world just goes, well, if you end up committing to that false set, it's not ganking the false set, it's just we kill you. It's if you're going to split somebody else elsewhere. And so I don't know. I feel like for me, it's not. He's not under that kind of pressure, and in team fights, it seems to be pretty impactful still. So I'm more on the false set hype train, I think, than I am against it at this point at the Eastern Clash.
Dread, I said during our break, I said if Ballistix opts for first pick, I'm afraid that KSV is going to take him to BOE.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it scares me a lot. It seems like they've really put a lot into the Hanzo, but then we've also seen a lot of Genji first picks to try and make sure that there's not the Tracer there. So if you're going to first pick, we've seen the Uther ban a lot on the side of KSV against Ballistix. Is Hanzo going to be first pick? Is Genji going to be first pick? And that terrifies me coming into this draft on BOE. Most other battlegrounds, I'd be like, it's debatable, but BOE in particular,
yeah, absolutely
terrifies me here that KSV has picked this, knowing that first pick was there.
And beyond the draft and some of the elements that come into that as well, when we look at Ballistix and the performance they've had against, all through against the Korean teams today, they've lost both of their games on Battlefield of Eternity. So KSV's got to feel confident, and as per usual here, that is going to be the Maiev ban out on the side of Ballistix. Here comes out the Uther. Here's the question. What's the answer? I'm ready for it. I'm guessing it's going to be the Hanzo. No, we go with it neither.
That means Hanzo has got to be going to KSV, right? Instantly. Instantly.
There was a lot of hesitation. So did we see the response?
I do not want to see Genji.
What do you want instead? A Tracer? It's a map that would accent the playstyle a little bit better.
We've seen a lot of Tracer actually on Battlefield of Eternity as well, and I feel it's one of the reasons why Ballistix actually picked Malfurion, since so much of the Tracer plays have just immediately come in. Once you pick a Genji first, for example, you pick Hanzo first, immediate reaction in so many cases have been Malfurion and Tracer as an answer to it.
Also, I do like the Malfurion because I feel like a lot of people are underestimating the synergy he has with the Garrosh too.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a nice deny to just remove that slow healing that accents his armor so well.
We talked about that earlier too, because it's just so impactful. If you get a good flip and that's immediately the root, you can get the silence off as well. And post 10, that's usually a dead hero right away. So I love the Garrosh and Malfurion combo, and I feel in this case, if you pick it away, you not only pick a healer for your side that has an insane win ratio and is immensely impactful, you also deny another possible combo to your opponent.
So it is going to be the Tracer and the Tyrael, kind of a little bit more of what we saw earlier at the Eastern Clash. Ballistix going a bit more to their roots. The Tyrael in this type of situation into the Garrosh, I want to see, I feel like a target that's going to be able to complement that a little bit better. But at the same time, a lot of the heroes that we normally see that heavy pairing with have struggled in this tournament. So maybe maybe not. Maybe just having the Tyrael for the generic opportunities for the kills is going to be safer here.
I feel the Zeratul is trying to force out a Junkrat ban, because the Junkrat obviously a little bit more susceptible to a Zeratul, but I feel that if this should probably be a Genji ban. I feel like you've got to debate. Do you want to deal with the Genji or do you want to deal with the Junkrat? And I think either of those are on the board for KSV. And if you're Ballistix, do you just kind of ban something else out, or do you try and take away one of those?
I would say one of the problems that you have if you go into Junkrat over Genji is that Tracer has another really good target to jump on immediately. And they go for... Actually, I could have seen them pick up Blaze. I was just about to talk about the Tyrael and Blaze combo. We haven't seen as much success with it when Tempest played it, but I also feel they misplayed the cooldowns a bit. Whereas for Ballistix, it would have been a solid option, but they seem to be worried that KSV Black just takes it away from them.
It might be a bit more with the, you know, since the adjustment into the Tracer and just not wanting to deal with that anti-pulse bomb problem, but it is a little, you know, I don't want to say necessarily curious, but definitely an adjustment here for Ballistix compared to what we have seen from them. So they do end up letting the Genji through. You are going to assume that we get the Genji here, Jay-How? No.
You know, I was about to say, I wonder if we might see an Artanis come in, but we are going to get the Dahaka.
I really like the Dahaka only in the sense, okay, this is a little bit wild.
Are they going to Tassadar that last pick?
I feel like, yeah, with the Ariel pickup, you have to have something to justify the, essentially a secondary support to get that heavy, you know, siege and be overly problematic. I do like the Dahaka purely, I was going to say, just because the response to the Blaze and provides more threat and the opportunity in the side lane. If you do see the Ariel and you commit to the Tassadar, the 4-man and the pressure that applies, we might see one of the first macro-oriented Battlefield of Eternity games, actually, at this entire tournament. That being said, Ballistix now has to answer the question, do they want to be able to try and match that, or are they going to kind of just say, no, we're going to focus on our race and all in on that team fight in the early fights?
You could also see a Karazim coming on that last. If you really, because
well, that's what we've seen most from KSV Black when they do end up committing to that double support, yeah.
It's also against Tracer, again, another tool that can help to chase her down.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The dynamic is that you could put Reset on the Hanzo, Rich goes back to a Dahaka role, and put Kyocha back to one of those supports. And go to that Kyocha Sake double support that we saw very, very much so in their run last year.
We're going to find out. I feel like if it is, I feel like it has to be the Karazim. Right, there is a lot of hesitation towards the pickup, especially with the Arthas now being locked in. It's definitely a heavy deterrent, but when you commit to the Ariel there, the Karazim, not only for the Tracer, but also acting the race and having the, you know, the opportunity to make sure that you don't waste, you know, a double support on BOE, it feels like it's inevitable.
But I really like what Ballistix now picked up. Arthas alone is already fantastic. Garrosh, if he starts flipping him in, is just doing him a favor.
Baby.
And we have an Oriel and Zarya comes really looking for that form and pressure you've been talking about. That might be the changer, but that is a wild, wild draft for a grand final by KSV Black here.
What in the world is this?
This is a 1-4. It's a I'm not kidding. I feel like this is the first macro game we've seen this entire tournament, and it's a deadly 4 with the Dahaka offlane versus the race/kill potential of the Tracer Genji Tyrael.
It's literally about 2 to 3 hours ago, Dreadnought. We're just kind of
don't hit them with this. They don't need to know this.
And I'm like, if you were to pick one hero not in the meta, what would it like that should have some viability? Right after Dreadnought said Tyrande.
No, I said Zarya.
He said Zarya.
She is very good in this meta because she does accent a lot of the team fighting capabilities with also some of the best siege opportunities with Field of Heat. A lot of the front wall damage is very powerful within this current meta. You don't get the same slow macro play you used to, and she helps accent that.
But if she falls behind, you are in trouble. And that's something that I'm very scared of when I'm looking at what Ballistix has, because they have Tracer Genji, and that can really wreak havoc, especially in that backline as we are heading into the game here on Battlefield of Eternity.
I think a lot of it, Dread, with the Zarya shields, you got to get the energy from that damage, and Pulse Bomb is definitely one way. But if you can get the Genji to push out that shield onto an ally, and then Tracer has that Pulse Bomb, that's where I think a lot of where Ballistix is going to function to try and get these kills against KSV.
Do not see the decision-making, though. Feel the heat, auto-attack damage.
It's QQ.
You know, it is QQ. I know it's so in this case it is a little bit different with the Arthas trade-off. But Reset gonna get caught out here. He did end up already using his one shield, drag there onto the Genji. A lot of damage. The deflect. Reset falls here. Nice recall from SC, but SDE does not share the same fate. Tis coming in, and he's gonna turn that around 1-for-1.
This is just such an out there draft for me. After what KSV has displayed, this reminds me of Grand Finals at BlizzCon, game number 1 against Fnatic, where they went, I believe that was a Zarya composition on Cursed Hollow. And it was a little bit too much. and then they went back to what they know, went back to the normal, and that's what works for them. So if this works, then by all means, this is a fantastic strategy, but it's just throwing me for a loop here, Dread. This is not what I expected coming in here.
It's not what I expected either. You know, no matter how much I might think there's a sleeper value within the Zarya, this is not the time nor the place I expected it to come out. It is. I'm just curious on the fact that there's so much commitment towards the opportunity of having the tri-lane, having the siege, and having the Dahaka doing his own into the side lane. Is that going to be a problem? Not because it's an uncommon strategy, but because it feels so outdated in the playstyle, the team fights, and having that offlaner is just so fast in these initiations. Does Zarya and this strategy, are they really able to get the value we used to see these compositions get?
This is also a scatter arrow build at level 1. Not a redemption build where you generally need sustained damage to make sure that Ariel has the sustained healing that you need. Instead, we're seeing scatter arrow instead of the auto attack cooldown reduction. That's just another element here that this is something I have not seen executed before. There's not many Ariel compositions that we see nowadays. There's not many Ariel Zarya compositions, and there's definitely throwing in the Hanzo element here to be that battery that Ariel desperately needs.
The biggest thing here that I think is pretty quick to identify is that Ballistix needs to be effective within the skirmishing over this Force Immortal. It is dire for them to make sure that happens. If the map gets even a little bit out of control, we know what Zarya, Ariel, plus insert whatever hypercarry you want can make happen onto the map. We know how much worse that can even get when you have the Dahaka and the pressure there, and they have the Genji, the Tracer, for those levels 1 through 9 fight. They need to make something happen. It's just whether or not you can see KSV Black kind of manipulate for that side soak, for that sidewall pressure. 5 seconds out from our first Immortal phase. And we've got the camp still pressuring towards top in favor of KSV. Arthas is going to spend his time trying to rid of that. It's going to be a bit of a slow clear. A lot of damage here from Ballistix, but KSV is also, matching that as well.
That's what happens when you got the Hanzo, especially post level 4 as he's repping through those health bars. KSV Black actually comes out ahead here. That camp was still being cleared by Ballistix in that top lane, but now it's on race sides. We'll see if Ballistix commits to the race
and here's
or the
fight.
defense.
They have to commit to the fight, just mainly because, again, we talked about what happens if they end up struggling here. Nice route, going to force the Haka to get the burrow tist, gets a ground breaker, going to land onto SDE, damage is out, but Ariel getting that AoE heals. There's the flip onto Hooligan, no Eldruins available yet. He's going to use the shield, walking into his opponent's base. Kyocha ends up hitting the drag, another kill now for KSV. Huge value there from the Ariel in that choke. Ballistix now back out trying to get the damage, but the race is still going to be won here not only by the Hanzo and the rest of KSV. And with his shielding, what do we land at? Find ourselves at about that 25%-ish, 20%.
This is the part where I think Ballistix draft can fail.
Absolutely.
Anti-siege.
Yeah, I mean, that was why I tried to be like, this Immortal is going to really matter. The fact that they spent so much time worried about that top Immortal camp when they have no anti-siege into a great sieging composition with a legendary 1-4 split, the worst part of KSV's composition is the Immortal, and that is what they just won.
Immortal pushing through here. They need to get that shield off. You need to get it into melee range to have some type of general effectiveness. You can see SDE coming through on the top side of Genji, getting back into a defensive position. KSV has now hit 7 as they've gone through.
Look at that shielding use there with the mobility. Rich actually eats the pulse bomb. SDE is going to go in, use the shuriken, ends up getting that kill and the reset opportunity. Tis is going to pull out here and walk away from the fight. But look at that level 4 synergy there with reset on that Zarya, giving the shielding to Tis, constantly allowing him to get a lot of value there out of his flips. Good decision making though, or at least, execution from Ballistix. Again, they can't siege, so what do you have to do? Always move past that Immortal and force the fight.
Seemed like in that earlier fight, it really is going to come down to forcing out that shielding for the ally, allowing that opportunity for Tracer to go in and follow up on whatever that is. So you've got to be very, very reserved with when the heals go out, because you know that just beyond that heal and just beyond that shield, you will have a diving Genji and Tracer behind that. So again, if Ballistix loses another Immortal, I think you're right, Dread, in that they're going to need to just continue to fight. behind that Immortal every time.
But they do have an absolutely terrifying composition teamfight-wise post-10. I mean, KSV is nothing to laugh at. By no means did they put themselves, you know, into a grade where they can't teamfight if things get wild at the later stages of the game. It just is more so that KSV has so many opportunities in between and definitely before the heroics happen there. But we know, you know, I mean, some of my favorite heroes when it comes to the synergy together and how much post-10 impact they can have is always Malf, Arthas, and the Tyrael together. Specifically, Arthas Tyrael, one of my favorite double warrior duos that exists. One's going to slow you down, the other's going to speed up the Arthas. It just straight up is like, I mean, it's literally a Lucio heroic the entire time.
See how that plays out. Level 10, not anywhere close yet, as both teams are almost level 9, and our Immortals will be spawning here in just about 10 seconds, and we'll see if Ballistix can find another opportunity for a team fight. See if they can break through, maybe get away from that choke.
There's the flip, knock up, good cleanse coming out from Magi. Root's going to be there, Indomitable, buys a bit of the peel.
Buys it for now, and we can see we are on the race side again for these teams, at least for the first half, not the finisher side. So see who's willing to commit for that side. So SDE just barely dodges that tongue coming in from Kyocha, and you can see SC going in, getting the pulse bomb onto reset. He's going to be just fine. Hooligan, however, maybe not so, as he's holding here on the front line with the rest of Ballistix, and they've got their eyes set on Kyocha, unable to get the takedown.
Yeah, look at the use here. Hold on here. Nice flip there. Root's going to be dropped. Nice detainment strike against the wall. Jungha, though, gets the heal, keeps himself up, locks down 4 with the Howling Blast, and they retreat. Look at KSV's decision-making on where they take fights. Every single time Ballistix wants to skirmish, they retreat into chokes. Why? Ariel is massively gaining value, hitting 4-man heals constantly. And then guess who also gains value in chokes?
Malfurion.
Also, well, I would say Hanzo. That's who I'm looking at. Those scattering arrows are constantly allowing them to trade. With Ariel's AoE heal, with the AoE damage that Hanzo is distributing, nobody on Ballistix can confirm a kill yet, and that's what their comp's built to do. You know who is confirming the kills, though? Drag Root is there. KSV find another.
Found another, and the race towards 10 is close, as is the race on the Immortal, again in favor of KSV with that Hanzo factor. Now we'll see these teams try and adapt a little bit differently. You can see Zarya on the mini-map on the top, Dahaka on the bottom, trying to get 10, trying to push it over that edge. It looks like KSV with that one pick has been able to do so as they turn their attention towards the top Immortal. They're going to have this again pushing Dread, this next time in the bottom lane. Ballistix likely have to take another team fight behind us.
One thing we did end up seeing with the Dragon Blade being picked up, or an interaction that I wanted to see if we saw X-Strike versus the Dragon Blade, is the expulsion zone choking, and then that can provide onto the team of Ballistix if they commit too far. Typically, you can use like the X-Strike as an opportunity to retreat from that position if you've used all your cooldowns. Isolation is going to be dropped into Tracer. Twilight Dream to try and get the peel. Dragon Arrow is in and not going to get a kill, but the taunt onto Hooligan, the flip over, the knockup, and everybody on Ballistix keeping themselves up.
Barely. At that, now we've got the Immortal into the fray as it's pushing forward. The shield on it still a little bit there as it falls down, moving here into melee range. Ballistix will have a little bit of an easier defense. Look, however, for Kyocha on the front line, Tist on the front line to make those plays between Dahaka, between Garrosh. Ballistix having none of it as they hit the retreat button and fall behind their keep wall.
And Tracer's debating on whether or not she wants to deal with that Shaman camp up above. She ends up backing out and making the rotation back down here, so that is going to be a free fort on top, and actually a camp that you can expect KSV to rotate and protect after if this bottom fight, you know, is not looking too good with this Immortal. Ballistix now with the 5-man, questioning, do we move past this? Do we look to try and threaten out? The answer is not going to be yes to this. They end up getting rid of the Immortal. It's all said and done. It's going to be double fort loss and a full level disadvantage.
Big time play there by KSV to drop back, recognizing to get that camp in the meantime. And Ballistix, the indecision, no matter what, KSV had them in a tough spot. If they showed somebody defending top lane, KSV could have pushed even further in. But Ballistix willing to concede just a little bit, gave up that top fort, not terribly far behind, but as this game continues to unfold, could have bigger implications down the road. But for now, they're still playing it fairly even, but things have not probably gone as planned up to this point. But now with heroics on board, we'll see these fights take a little bit different tone.
It's so... I don't even know the word here. for Ballistix. That so many times that they're in positions to where in this game there's just a camp elsewhere on the map, and they're like, do we want to commit to that? Do we end up wanting to go to a different area? It's the constant split pressure that KSV is able to apply, and it's not even normally when I say that it's you know, looking at how good KSV is with these camps, and I mean they're still timing them with purpose. They're still focusing on protecting when necessary, but the biggest thing is just purely the lack of any wave clear that Ballistix has. You don't even necessarily have to time them with that much. Look at it, it takes 3-man rotations just to rid of some impalers. I mean, they are going to get rid of them, but I mean, it's a wet noodle fighter up here.
Well, the one thing that is happening is 13 being picked up by KSV. Ballistix still just a few more minions away from obtaining that, as we are now just moments away from another Immortal phase here. We're going to see if Ballistix can finally take one of these fights again. Heroics now here. I feel like if they're going to start to turn it around, obviously it's got to be soon. But right now, they've got to take these fights, and they've got to take them decisively.
There's the 13. Material goes with a holy ground opportunity. Rich needs to tread lightly if he's going to move up through that choke. There goes Hooligan. Going to zone off for a moment. Scattering Arrow going to distribute the damage, while the rest of Ballistix onto their Immortal. Tis unable to hit that knockup. Now Ballistix looking to zone up, get the pressure out. SDE goes in quickly. Going to go out. Howling Blast use.
Howling Blast has them locked in, as does the Roots. You can see the Twilight Dream as well, but the Sanctification, they're diving under it, looking for the fight, the Expulsion Zone in return, as the rest of Ballistix, they're pushing forward, but they're met with a fort as well. And now Hooligan's getting tossed in. Hooligan somehow survives here, Dread.
Nice root on Kyoto, though. It's going to buy a bit of peel and allow the drag not to connect. The shielding used to give the mobility to Kyoto, but the Howling Blast just keeping him just out of range once again from that drag. KSV wins the small trade in the skirmish. Nice value there onto the Zarya, getting that stun and making sure she gets more value to kick off the halftime shell. And this is up to Ballistix again to try and force this fight without having the Sanctification and, you know, a majority of their heroics, though. It's unlikely that they are going to be successful here because a lot of their composition hinges on having those, and the default kit of the race of KSV is superior to that of theirs. A nice into the fray to try and help out the team. Tis on the Garrosh is actually disgusting.
Tough right now, but they've got the stun, they've got the lockdown onto that Dahaka. Kyoto surviving for the moment with a huge root there, and now we see the Pulse Bomb going out as well. Crystal, he just hits the wrong target there. Sake's gonna fall. 3 members of KSV have all gone down. Make it 4. Will Tis go? Tis is actually gonna be the last to fall, and that is gonna be all 5 going down. Boom! As KSV explodes there.
You could not have put it better. The Aegis target. There was almost 3/4.
So close,
there was
man.
3/4 of an HP. That's why I said look at the choke, right? They're looking to try and kite back into that choke. Everybody felt very, very low, but by Aegising on top of himself and not getting one of the other targets, that meant that 3/4 HP bar that he was saving on that Hope was legitimately unusable for a 1-second duration. Yeah, the Aegis got a lot of damage and value, but in the meantime, Ballistix was like, yeah, well, thank you for the free kills. We're going to take these 2. We'll clean up the Aegis kill afterwards, and this is Ballistix's opportunity here. They get the very first Immortal of the game, but it is not over yet. They are still struggling when it comes to the macro and the structures onto the map. They need to find a way to get a fight with this Immortal, get the experience lead, and never let go of this game.
That big-time root there. It all started with the Dahaka, but that was all a ruse because it was all a matter of Arthas coming in and hitting that major Howling Blast there. They're going to need a lot more of that as this goes on. They do have their first Immortal here. 40% of that shielding, they'll be able to get through the fort. But Dread with the threat of 16 after this fort goes down, will they try and push that advantage a little bit more?
Very, very likely so. Nobody looking for that collapse on the side of Ballistix. Hooligan threw down the Adrenaline. It's enough to zone. You see KSV very much respecting the distance of safety between these 2 forts.
Tist is hiding in this bush. He wants to see if anybody's willing to flank, because if they get that flank, look at the position between Kyoto. They want to get the toss. Nobody's taking the bait because it's not going to be there. They're just going to push forward instead.
But maybe they'll get a bit too close. Groundbreaker at the sidewall drops. Tist unable to move up thanks to the Immortal stun. Immortal now falling down to 5-10%. Howling Blast used, only going to land onto Ridge. Nobody wants to move a bit too far past that. Ballistix end up getting 1 fort for themselves, which is, at this point of the game, you know, expected out of that kind of shielded Immortal. Not too much beyond that. Again, it's kind of a compositional weakness, if you will, with their lack of ability to get that siege. And because KSV, the reason I highlighted that, you know, how safe they were over that situation is because, you know, Ballistix, they fight is necessary for them. They have to be able to force those, so not willing to give them up for free and make them dive to keep if they want to take anything.
The Swarm is coming, and that Swarm has a name of Ballistix. This is a full 4.5, 5-man rotations the minute Tracer comes over. They are looking for a fight at every turn of this battleground, Dreadnought.
They very much are. Jungha still kind of floating around here, trying to figure out if they're going to actually get any realistic collapse onto the Dehaka. Not going to be the case. Nobody's looking to, make anything happen here. The Immortal phase spawning is going to be rather slow. With this transition towards top and the information being conveyed, I wonder if KSV maybe will look for an invade opportunity onto that Shaman camp, make it difficult for Ballistix, but they're just worried about the 16, not wanting to try and abuse that here.
Dread, we can see the damage numbers there. Hanzo definitely carrying his weight, but the Zarya pick still waiting to take full effect, I think, in this game.
It was a risk. It very much was a risk, and it's one of those things that I feel like Ballistix over the first couple of Immortals gave them enough of what you normally would look at to be like, this was proper. We got what we wanted out of the selection. But after, this successful team fight that Ballistix ended up having before this, it just feels like, and the Aegis timing, right, over the choke and everything alike, if that doesn't happen again, I mean, other than that fight, really, Ballistix, or KSV, excuse me, has been doing pretty well with the choke fight and with abusing both the Zarya and the Ariel, along with that Hanzo.
These spawns seem to be favoring KSV. It's a little bit of RNG, but...
What are you saying?
RNG.
Well, I was just, I mean, was that in the script that we wrote for this?
Well, now we're in a defensive position. This is the scene of the crime last time in this bottom lane area. Ballistix taking a very aggressive approach. KSV cautiously approaching in defense. They're looking for those stuns that the Immortal throws out, and you can see Kyocha trying to make that opportunity, Tiss trying to make that opportunity happen off of that defensive Immortal stun.
You look at Tiss moving up. It's all about when does Reset try and give him that mobility and make that major play, because if KSV gets a fight that they want, I expect it to be done through that. Otherwise, Reset, he's going to be the man caught out. Uses the shield. Nice root coming out from Magi. Sanctification's dropped. Aegis is used there onto the expulsion zone to keep him alive. All the members of KSV have survived. A lot of the heroics at the onslaught here. Nice flip and stun and knock up there. The Holy Ground is going to be split. Hooligan actually ended up dividing the team, and that allows Magi to come in with the Twilight Dream. The Pulse Bomb drops. It is a 1-for-2 trade in favor here of Ballistix.
1 for 2 for now. Rich flipped over on the bottom side here. Hooligan not willing to commit to the trade. Instead, coming back, looking to help his team. You can see Jongha and team trying to get the slow. Kyocha somehow walks away from this. Tist probably not going to be so lucky. He's surviving for now. But that is going to be 3 members down on the side of KSV. Kyocha somehow hides in a bush, and he's just like, you know what? Going home.
That was such a great fight there from Ballistix. Hooligan able to get that split there in the Magi with the collapse on the Twilight Dream. That was just amazing. So often we saw KSV recollecting themselves and clumping as a group, and that was the first time that we saw Ballistix try and abuse that, pattern being displayed from them. Yes, the last fight obviously went in their favor, but that was, again, maybe because of that misplay onto the Ariel. But this is now, I mean, KSV has to find a different game plan. And to be honest with you, that's one of the, kind of questions why the Ariel pick, where we were sitting there going, well, this is very risky, is because she needs that to kind of be effective within this type of meta. And it seems like Ballistix, they figured out, the last puzzle piece necessary.
I feel like Ballistix is going to try and make a push, Dread, not just for a keep, but they might try and end here. They're going to get this camp to empower it. There is a camp that will be pushing the top lane against them. Going back to concede to defend against that would just diminish the value you get from this Punisher. Yes, there's a little bit of a fort standing, but they'll get 20 once they get through the fort and the keep wall. I think that if they can find an aggressive approach where we see Arthas already coming in for the flank of the top, can he get the root? He gets 2. Let's see if they have the follow-up. It is not there. The root from Malfurion is enough there.
Good job for Kyocha using that burrow there just to make sure to dodge the Immortal Stun that was going to be the follow-up. Cooldown he might need in a couple of seconds, but absolutely necessary. Howling Blast used from Jongha. Lands onto Rich. Rich is going to be fine for now. Tiss now in the front lines. Expulsion Zone used to get the zone. Flip is used. Sanctification, it actually deters the isolation, so nobody's going to be silenced. All the members are invulnerable, and they go in. They end up getting the kill onto Garrosh with the Pulse Bomb. And look at Ballistix. They are not done. They are aggressing Magi with the 4-man Twilight Dream. A reset number 2 for SDE. He's hacking and slashing, and now they're going for this core.
They're going for it. The Immortals still strong here. They got past it. They got 20. They got the team fight. They got exactly what they wanted post level 10. This has been all Ballistix as the shield has fallen. The core is next to go, and all of a sudden Ballistix has tied up this series 2-2.